Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley was born on August 30, 1797 to two well-known writers, radical, for at the time, feminist writer Mary Wollstonecraft and borderline anarchist philosopher William Godwin. Although her mother died only 11 days after her birth, her influence as a writer stuck with her through her lifetime. Not long after Mary Wollstonecraft's death, William Godwin remarried Mary Jane Godwin. Throughout Mary's childhood, the two had a very strained relationship, causing Mary to spend most of her free time at her mother's grave. While Mary never had a formal education, she taught herself through her father's expansive at-home library. At her mother's grave, she used to read, write, and daydream to escape the reality of her home. When Mary was 14, she met one of her father's students, a 19-year-old by the name of Percy Shelley. Percy was a student of her father's, and one of his biggest admirers. The next time the two met, Mary was 16, and Percy was 21. And married, with a child. Nonetheless, the two began an affair. The pair would spend their time at her mother's grave, taking walks and reading poetry to each other. Not too long into the affair, the two eloped and spent their time traveling about Europe. All while Percy was still legally married. In the midst of one of these travels in Switzerland, Mary and Percy were staying with their good friend Lord Byron. Throughout this rainy summer, the group entertained themselves by reading ghost stories and horror novels until one day Lord Byron suggested they had a try at writing their own. This is believed to be the inspiration for Mary Shelley's most well-known novel, Frankenstein, published in 1818. Within that same year, the family suffered many losses. Mary's half-sister, Franny, and Percy's wife Harriet had both died, along with Mary losing a child shortly after birth. Despite this, Mary and Percy were legally married in 1816, immediately after the death of his first wife. Despite Mary and Percy's marriage starting strong, between the deaths of many of their children and rumors of Percy's affairs, Mary's life was filled with heartache, ending with the drowning of her husband during a shipwreck off the coast of Italy. Mary lived the rest of her life working as hard as she could as a novelist to support herself and her and Percy's only surviving son, Percy. Mary Shelley ultimately died of brain cancer at the young age of 53 in London, England. She was cremated with her husband's calcified heart, which she kept her whole life. Mary Shelley's influence on modern science fiction and Gothic literature is indisputable. Being known as the mother of science fiction, her novels have influenced dozens of modern-day works. Despite the many hardships faced in her life, her works as a novelist prove that success can be achieved through perseverance, even through the hardest times.